The reason why there's so much clamoring for upgrades is that the team got hurt. You saw Aiden Hutchinson and Alim McNeill go down. You saw the impact. You see the moves that they made. They're taking a chance again on Marcus Davenport. So they're running it back with a lot of the talent that they had. And I think that what kind of makes things a little bit more difficult is that the last image, the last memory the Lions fans have is of the team losing to the Commanders in the playoffs. So naturally, I think that there's a vision and a thought that the team's not good enough. And when you have that thought, the next step is to say, okay, free agency comes along, and then that's the first step to get more players. But I do think that there is a legitimate concern from Lions fans that, hey, is the edge rusher position enough? Is the defensive line enough with the addition of Roy Lopez, who clearly was signed as a replacement for Alim McNeill? We now know, and it's not terribly unexpected. Basically, Dan Campbell was asked about the health status of some of the players. Clearly, it's an opportunity to learn about some of the health status of some of the players that are injured. But one of the players that's key is Alim McNeill. And when you know that he suffered the torn ACL in December, it typically takes around 9 to 12 months, to heal. And for, defensive linemen, it may be more on the longer side. So Dan Campbell confirmed, and it was pretty much known that Alim McNeill is not going to be available for the start of the 2025 season. And it could be into the second or third quarter of the season before you see the talented run stuffer. They did offer him, and he did, accept a lucrative long-term contract extension. So it's unfortunate that he got hurt, but I do think that, it's going to be interesting to see what Roy Lopez brings to the table and others as well, maybe even Broderick Martin. But what's your reaction to Alim McNeill, basically now knowing that potentially you're not going to see him around until October or November?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I kind of dove into it over the weekend and took a look at a couple of similar cases with defensive tackles, both with Grady Jarrett, who's a more recent example, and then Chris Clemens, who's more of a defensive end, a little bit further back in the 2010s. But his was interesting because he suffered the injury in a playoff game. And so that I think is a good example of like how long this could take. And with Chris Clemens, he suffered that injury in the wild card round and then came back by week 3. So I think that was kind of the basis for what I was projecting for Alim McNeill. I think I was a little bit more on the optimistic side, thinking he could get to that 13, 14 game range. After what Dan Campbell said today, I would maybe go a little bit lower than that. I think, in the best case scenario for the Lions, you're able to get 12 games out of McNeill in 2025. I think that with the status that Campbell gave in his update, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see if McNeill started the year maybe on IR, or if they treated it similarly to the Emmanuel Moseley situation a couple of years back, where Moseley wasn't on IR to start the year, but he was a healthy scratch. I shouldn't say healthy scratch, but he was an inactive in 2023 for the first 4 games, I believe, before coming back in week 5. And I think the biggest thing with the Lions is you don't want to rush him back, and I don't think they're going to. And so, like I said, I would be a little bit more cautious with him in that 12-game range, that 11-game range, so that when he's on the field, you can get the best version of him. It's not he's out there physically, but he's maybe 80%, 85% in week 3 versus now maybe you get into week 4, week 5 where he can be a little bit closer to 100, because it's a grind and the Lions want to play deep into January and into February and play in a Super Bowl. And if that's going to be the case, he's going to have a lot of buildup and wear and tear on that knee again, and you want to make sure that he's fully healthy and ready to go when he gets back into action. So I think the Lions are going to slow play it with McNeill. I don't expect him to be out over half the year by any means, but I wouldn't be surprised if his absence leaks into week 5, maybe week 6, just because the Lions want to be as safe as possible.